Each one of us are aware of depression in some way, as it surrounds us each day. You may not even realize it. I'm sure each of you have an idea of depression in some way. However, we're going to start with the basic idea. So depression is a mood disorder that causes a feeling of sadness and loss of interest, also called major depressive disorder or clinical depression. It affects how you feel, think, and behave, and can lead to a variety of emotional and physical problems. Chemicals are involved in this process, but it's not a simple matter of one chemical being too low or another too high. More like many chemicals are involved, working both inside and outside your nerve cells. Stress itself sends a reaction through 4 brain systems, ending up with the adrenaline glands, secreting substances like cortisol, which interacts with the serotonin receptors in the brain. This cortisol is useful in acute stress as it prepares the body to take action against the stress. You may think of this as fight or flight. Once the stress has been dealt with, cortisol levels return to normal, and that's when you would see either your friends or yourself feel happier again, and you'll notice them come back to normal. Leading causes of depression vary for each person. However, here are some of the many that we may relate to or are seen more often. Overall, social media is not seen to help in any way. Social media causes added insecurities and bullying online. When reviewing social media activity, people tend to make comparisons such as, did I get as many likes as someone else? Or why didn't this person like my post, but they like this other person's? They're searching for the validation on the internet that serves as a replacement for meaningful connections they might otherwise make in real life. For instance, girls may look on an Instagram and see another girl who has used filters or even a Photoshop app to put out an image of who they are. They see the validation that girl is getting and attention from guys, and they start to believing they are not good enough, pretty enough, or even worthy of being loved. The girls that look at her profile, they start comparing and creating a false image of who this person is and create who they want to be, when in reality we are made in the image of God and have no reason to change for social media. God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. There is no reason to change for social media. And overall, social media is used as an alternate escape and harms many and almost helps back some insecurities, making it feel even more true. SAD, which stands for Seasonal Affective Disorder. Your symptoms start in the fall and continue into the winter months, zapping your energy and making you feel moody. These symptoms often resolve during the spring and summer months. Less often, SAD causes depression in the spring or early summer and resolves during the fall or winter months, but it's possible. Some of the symptoms: feeling sad or down, losing interest in activities you once enjoyed, having low energy, having problems sleeping too much, having difficulty concentrating, losing self-worth, having thoughts of not wanting to live or not wanting others to live. There are some more specific to fall and winter. So winter depression many times are oversleeping, appetite changes, weight gain, tiredness, or low energy. Whereas in the spring and summer, trouble sleeping, poor appetite, weight loss, agitation or anxiety, and increased irritability. These are common with all variants of depression. Don't brush off that feeling as simply it happens every year, or a seasonal funk that you have to tough out or worry about on your own. Take steps to keep your mood and motivation steady throughout the year. Find your hobbies and turn to God. Use prayer to work through it. Some of the more common treatment is talk therapy, light therapy, or some can even find medications that work best for you. School. School has so many parts to it. So to start, the pressure students have about grades and homework. This has become a much bigger problem and is harming students more than many realize. Some parents are putting so much stress on students, as many students don't want to disappoint their parents with grades. And on top of that feeling of how much homework students have or what tests they have to study for, when a student goes home after a 7-hour day of school, after clubs or sports, they don't have much time to allow themselves to rest as they have homework and studying with 8 classes, in some cases, and up to hours added of homework alone. The stress of school is a big part of so many students' life, as grades have started to become who they are. In some cases, even between friends, you are the smart kid taking smart classes and school is easier. Or, in some cases, you're the dumb kid among your friends whose school is hard and you have to study so much more than your friends, which just puts students down. Students need help from teachers. Having one-on-one help for homework, studying, or even just having a relationship where the student really feels that the teacher cares about them helps so much. If teachers as a whole were able to have a way to see what each student has for homework, tests, or quizzes, try to stick to it working with other teachers and hearing from specifically the students' needs and not just a timeline or due dates. This alone would relieve so much stress from students. Many students fight depression and don't even know what's happening. But the added stress of school and home life come together. The thoughts can evolve to something awful, quickly, and eventually lead to suicidal thoughts. It was found in one study that girls ages 15 to 19, the rate doubled from 2007 to 2015, which was at the highest point in 40 years. The suicide rate for boys increased by 30% over that same time period. Seeing this issue is so hard to think about, especially when many aren't sure who is in this position or how we can help. Saying you've got it or you'll be fine or you know you're loved isn't helping sometimes. School is not the focus of every student's life. Many who are struggling at home, school may be their safe place. And when grades are put at a pedestal as important as they appear, if you get a bad grade, you don't have a future. You'll never get into college, or you'll fail once you get to college, and you won't succeed. Students need more support. Having counselors and teachers and coaches who truly care about the well-being of students both at school and outside of school, those who are willing to listen and give a hug or a prayer to students who may not feel loved at home, could change a student's path to success drastically. Here's a more extreme example from where a coach who truly cared and was able to step in.
Newly released surveillance video showing a stunning moment of compassion after a thwarted shooting at an Oregon high school.
Possibly going to be an active shooter now at Parkwood High School, Leamore Park.
It happened back in May, when 18-year-old Angel Granados Diaz made his way to the Fine Arts Building with a loaded shotgun under his jacket.
I saw the look in his face, look in his eyes, looked at the gun. I realized it was a real gun, and then my instincts just took over.
Keenan Lowe, the security officer and football coach, sprung into action. Lowe, a former University of Oregon wide receiver, rustled the gun away as students ran for their lives. Then, a powerful embrace. After handing the gun off to another teacher, Lowe wrapped Granados Diaz in a hug.
I just wanted to let him know that I was there for him. I told him I was there to save him. I was there for a reason, and that, you know, this is a life worth living.
Police arrived soon after, taking the teen into custody. No one was injured. Thursday, Granados Diaz pleaded guilty to gun charges. He will not spend any time behind bars, instead receiving a 36-month probation sentence. The district attorney's office saying Granados Diaz brought the gun loaded with only one round to school while in the midst of a mental health crisis. A crisis averted with a simple gesture.
The universe works in amazing ways. I'm lucky and I'm happy that I was in that classroom for those kids and that I was able to prevent that tragedy.
Great. So as in that video, you can see he wasn't even meaning, he didn't even want to hurt people necessarily, but what he was going into could have changed his entire life. That one coach being there completely stopped him, and he is now able to go out and still find jobs, and his life is not completely ruined from that. So what can we do? Each of these form to students, teachers, parents, friends, siblings, and you can form it to work for your situations. Teachers can check in on students regarding workload, extended time for completing assignments and taking tests, or even if a student's tardy, figure out why they're tardy or ask If it's your friend, ask why were they late, not, oh, you were late. Don't make them feel bad about it. Don't get mad when an assignment is not done or someone is late. And for the next one, support. Be supportive while also encouraging them to engage in different activities. Don't put them down while saying you're lazy or not doing anything with your life. You're not trying. Many times they are trying but don't know what to do, or at that point they feel worthless and just need a little bit more encouragement. Gently suggesting solutions. Suggest possibly going to therapy or speaking to someone. For some teenagers, therapy isn't an option, so speaking with a guidance counselor or school counselor may be a helpful alternative as well. Don't tell them they need a therapist or they need help or they're the problem. Rather, giving them those solutions, just gently helping them will be so much better. Overall, we have so much to learn and grow. Whether we see our flaws or others, we must help one another in every way possible. Those who struggle with depression often feel that the world is against them. Their insecurities and weaknesses take over, and the pain overthrows. Especially in this time, one must trust in the Lord to recover from the pain. Without the Lord, we are nothing. This verse explains that when you restore your faith and strength, with Him you are able to succeed. Create a more successful lifestyle and walk with Him. As this verse says, but those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. And they will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Take this with you. About 20% of teenagers experience depression before they reach adulthood. So today, take some time to help those around you. Fight this fight of life, and before you make that joke or make fun of that one friend, think about how that may affect them.
Well done. All right, we have several guests with us, so I want to open it to you all first. If you have any questions or comments for Gabby, go for it.
I'll start.
Oh, wait, no, go ahead.
Well, my only question at the beginning, you would talk a lot about the influence of social media on females, and just I think because you're a female, so you see it more from that perspective. But in any of your research, was there any statistics about like depression rates among men, or boys versus girls, male versus female? Like, does one have a higher rate than the other? Do you see anything like that?
Yeah, it seems. I also talked to a counselor specifically who does teen or works with teen depression, and both her and my research showed that girls have more insecurities followed by social media, which then leads to more depression. However, guys have just as much, it's almost more hidden, and so they've found ways to, I don't know, it's almost discounted. So they have just as much, it's just not seen as much.
I have a question that's building on
Yeah.
Why did you find anything like causation or correlation between like why is the number so high in men? And you said it increased by like 30% over the last like how much time?
It was just a few years.
Yeah. Did you find any reason why that is? Any like maybe even anecdotal thoughts as to why that might be?
Well, from the most research that I saw was COVID. I didn't get to talk about it a lot, but both COVID and how social media has become so much more prominent into everyone's life. So starting to compare themselves more or seeing their friends outside of school more, and then comparing themselves, which insecurities I think has brought it more to light. But I don't.
Sorry. Do you think men or just like guys in general are less equipped emotionally? Like there's a lower emotional IQ, and that might be a reason why. Like I think women are told at a young age, like it's okay to grapple with emotions, whereas guys are told, not universally, but generally speaking, it's kind of like, hey, be different, or like don't really bring that to the surface. Is it an emotional IQ issue as well? Like having emotions and not knowing how to process through them?
Yeah, so a lot of the research, I think guys feel almost worse or makes them feel worse when they show their emotion or when they let that emotion out. Whereas for girls, it's like it's okay to cry. If you're not feeling well, cry. Whereas guys, they hold it in, which then brings it out in anger and makes it almost worse. But I'm not sure that it's
I think you said 2007 to 2015, which I think was probably the advent of Instagram, really when that really started.
Mm-hmm.
I think Twitter started right around 2006, and Facebook was kind of so it might be in that window. You mentioned the stress of parents trying to encourage grades. Would you find that that could be a little bit stressed in suggesting a counselor? I know growing up, 800 years old, so back then it was, you didn't want to go see a counselor, you didn't want to admit that, that there might be something wrong. And people your age, would you be more receptive to that?
I think people still have such a bad connotation of counseling and therapy now, which is why it's good to have teachers who we see truly care and who are there for us. And once a teacher, I think sometimes it's hard to get from a parent that you need counseling just because of how it's intended, because in many cases we take that as our parents are mad at us or disappointed and that's why they want us to go. So I think having those teachers at school or friends who you feel truly care about you and are telling you for the right reasons, I think it's still looked at in bad connotations, but it can be brought to light in a positive way.
You brought up school quite a bit, obviously, for depression. So I'm trying to say it the right way. So I guess what I'm asking is, school is a very broad and general thing. So you brought up a couple of different things. You said it's the pressure of parents, and then how they grades define them, which is really a self-image issue. So can you say, instead of saying school is causing that, is it better to actually find what the issue is that's causing it? Maybe it's a self-image, or it is pressure of parents or pressure of friends. If you could define the problem first, could that help relieve some of the depression, rather than just saying, oh, it's school, and making it general, and then there's no...
Yeah, I think it's hard because each person has such different problems within, like what they're, it's not necessarily problems, but what they're bringing with it. So for some students, it is the taking tests, that pressure from their parents of getting the right grade with that test, but it's not necessarily just school as a whole. Or if it's the pressure of the friends around them, or the insecurities that come with it, or the self-image, like you were saying, school is more of just like the overview of as a whole, not necessarily the topic, like the main topic.
Because I was wondering if it would be helpful then just to kind of go in on the problem, because if you have a self-image issue, then you can bring in other things. You should write in a couple of verses too. That's interesting. I just had one more question, which is just, it's a different thing. At the very beginning, you said the definition of depression was it's a feeling, and then it went into other things. The word feeling, I think, is interesting because feelings can kind of be whatever. So, do you think that different personalities are more prone to depression if it's a feeling? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can definitely see that, and I think it's hard because for some people it is more of a chemical, like in their brain or in their nerve cells, it's going to be more prone, or you're going to see it more, whereas the feeling aspect, I guess, would come more of how they're living their life or who's around them, I guess who's surrounding them to give them the validation that they're looking for to make them feel that way. But for each person, the feeling is going to be different, and so it's, I guess you can't really pinpoint exactly what that would be.
In your research, did you find one therapy or one technique that is most effective in treating depression? I know you mentioned different ones. Is there one that kind of stands out more than others? Or?
It's again one of those things that is so specific to people, to which therapy or which therapy they would need, which depression they have. So for many people, medications may not help unless you have long-term depression. Whereas some people, so going to a counselor or going to a therapist would be more helpful. So it really just depends on more specifically which.
Was like physical activity or exercise ever mentioned as a treatment or a technique?
A lot of people tend to just go into their room and kind of, I guess, like lock themselves off from the world, lock themselves off from the people around them. So just getting outside, I can't remember the exact amount of time, but there's just being outside, physical activity as a whole can almost change just as much as going and seeing.
I had two thoughts / questions. Both of them are kind of a sidestep to what your project was, but I think it's helpful what you talked about for both of them. First question is how much, like you mentioned in terms of when someone is depressed, it's a mood disorder, right? There's something that's not happening that's supposed to be happening physically, like physiologically, psychologically, something that is happening that's not supposed to be happening, whatever the case is. So there's like a real physical, medical, even like you mentioned, that sometimes medicine is a helpful resource. But how much do we have by way of spiritual resources? If I could ask it that question. And what I mean by that is, you mentioned our hope is in the Lord and all of that stuff is well and good, but I know a lot of Christians get themselves in a fix because Jesus is the answer to everything. And I don't know, I feel like sometimes we're kind of selling people short that, yeah, Jesus is the answer, but maybe Jesus and therapy, right? Like, could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, it's hard whenever, I guess, say that you have someone close to you that is fighting depression, and maybe your first thought is, we'll just go pray about it. That's not necessarily going to be the first solution, and almost could push them away from the Lord in that moment, which is not what you want them to do. You want them to come to the Lord and almost come back closer. Yeah, so, I mean, you can't just say Jesus is the only answer, because yes, he should be your first priority, but also it's hard, especially today, to see him as the only answer. You can have other outlets and you can have other people around you to talk to, counselors, and at the end of the day, come back to the Lord, or find maybe questions that you need to look for, or ways to validate how you're feeling in a way that you can't do that just by reading the Bible. Sometimes you have to find other outlets.
And yeah, and it seems kind of counterintuitive for Christians to say that, but when Jesus gives us resources like the church, like brothers and sisters in Christ, like wonderful doctors who know what they're talking about, and so on, like we see that as a gift from God. And it's interesting, what you said, that in some cases, if you tell people like Jesus is the answer, I think two negative things come from that. One, okay, he didn't take it away within 24 hours. So now all of a sudden the person seems to be doubting not just themselves, but now Jesus, right? That's a problem. But then I think also the other edge of that sword is that I think for a lot of people, the apprehension that you have to see your depression as depression is the same apprehension we have, that we don't like to admit that we have faults, that we have, and I don't know, like Gary mentioned it earlier, it's like that there's a lot in that assumption that if I'm depressed, then am I sinning? Am I not a good person now? Am I, which just deepens the problem. So that's why I wanted to be a little more nuanced there. The second question, and this is again just more a prompt than anything. You talked a lot about teachers, and certainly like the teachers and parents in the room were thinking, what can I do for the young people I have in my life? Speak to your classmates for a minute, that when you see someone, or even in yourself, whatever it may be, how does that peer-to-peer interaction happen? where obviously you don't really have the authority or the right to tell a classmate, you need help, you know, you need that, like you mentioned, that comes across bad at times. So like, maybe advise your classmates on that a little bit.
I think it's hard as peers, I guess, to see someone who is fighting and who may have those thoughts, and it's almost, I don't know that there is like the right answer. There's not one thing that you can do. There's not like one fix-all. But starting is just, I feel like we show love in a way sometimes as almost putting other people down or joking around, and to some people, you may point out their flaws as a joke. But I think taking a step back and realizing, okay, what am I telling this person? Am I calling them names, or not in that sense, but am I making fun of their appearance? Am I making fun of how much they're, I don't know, if they're weightlifting, oh, well, they're not doing enough, so then you're making fun of that. And maybe you don't realize it, but maybe not trying to, I guess, point out their flaws in that sense and pulling them together, encourage them in everything that they're doing, but be genuine about it. Show them your love. Show them that it's okay to hurt and that it's okay to feel that pain, and it's not something to look down upon. If they come to you and they feel vulnerable enough with you to tell you that they're depressed right now, or they're just not feeling like themselves and they don't know what to do, just be open to listening. Don't make fun of that. And you can always suggest going to see somebody. If there's a teacher that you know that you trust, suggest going to that teacher, suggest talking to them. If there's guidance counselor, finding some way that you maybe may not help you as much, or you know someone who it's helped, just finding those little things without being completely overbearing or making them feel bad about it as a whole. It's really there's not a fix-all.
Right.
Just being there.
Right.
Is
All right, great.
sometimes.
All right, classmates, you got anything, questions, comments for Gabby?
Do you think nowadays depression is more like genetic influence or like our circumstances? And then if it's our circumstances, is there like a difference between just being sad about something happening and being depressed?
Yeah. I'd say more circumstantial. But there's definitely a difference between just feeling upset for a week or being depressed for 6 months. I think it's hard because sometimes people don't really know like what is depression or when do I need to take medication, and again, it's so specific to the person. But if you're just feeling sad for a week because you had a really stressful week, and then that weekend comes and you're perfectly fine again, and then that next Monday you come back and you're upset again. Well, that's more of, okay, let's think about it. Is it just whenever I'm at school or just whenever I'm with my parents or doing homework that I'm feeling upset or feeling down? Or is it, I have been in my room for 2 weeks straight and haven't wanted to do absolutely anything. I've gone to school and I've come home and I haven't talked to anybody. You're noticing that you don't want to do anything that you enjoyed in the past. If you had these hobbies or sports that you really enjoyed and you just kind of stopped doing them. I think it's hard because in the moment you may not realize it, but as a friend, you'll definitely notice it within your friends a little bit more if they stop doing what they love and you know them enough, and you'll realize that. But there's definitely a difference, and it's based off of timing more than anything, I think. That's it.
Cool. Anything else? All right, thank you, Gabby.